It doesn't take a genius to know that our economy is in dire straits right now. All it takes is someone who perceives the world around them rather than heed the venom that the media and politicians spit at us. The truth about our economy is also lost on the rapidly shrinking middle class, and by the middle class, I refer strictly to the boomers who have already retired with $1 million homes, the ones who go out to dinner at restaurants multiple times a week and hardly bat an eye at the prices. We, the people, need only pay attention to our daily lives to know. Here, I will list just a few of the biggest examples. 1. The price of groceries has risen to such a degree that it's nearly equal to buying a $10 to $12 fast food meal than cooking one with expensive groceries. We see the cost of a healthy meal that's priced at about 80% of what fast food would be priced at. And the fact that we have to cook a home-cooked meal ourselves and clean up makes the ratio far less appealing than just buying fast food. 2. The job market's atrocious, with hundreds of thousands of jobs fewer than are reported, partially due to ghost job listings. Everybody still in their career knows that getting a new job is nearly impossible right now, with the average number of applications it takes to get a job soaring high into the hundreds, sometimes into the low thousands. There is also the job mobility crisis nobody talks about, where promotions are stagnant and our wages remain glued to the floor as the ceiling of prices continues to rise. The unemployment number at the time of writing this is about 4.5%, and I don't believe anyone actually believes that this is the case, for the government can alter definitions of what it means to be unemployed and employed to get the data they want. An example of this is when they altered the definition of recession. Once we had a recession in 2020, they changed the definition from 2 consecutive quarters of GDP growth to something else. 3. Gas prices have skyrocketed across the nation because of the war with Iran and our country's demented obsession with licking the boots of our greatest ally, Israel. The Strait of Hormuz has shut down, and about 20% of the world's oil is now locked down with it. The U.S. could use their emergency oil reserves in our own nation, but those are largely depleted under Biden's administration. We sent multi-million-dollar defense missiles simply to shoot down Iranian drones that cost about $50,000 to make. And anyone who knows basic multiplication can know that that is a tremendously bad ratio. A ratio that we, the taxpayers, pays for. 4. Housing prices have not dropped since COVID and have actually remained at record highs. Despite the new developments being built, we still have housing shortages, and it appears that 20 million illegal immigrants swarming our country to take our homes is actually one of the least important issues regarding housing. The new houses that are built are made of plywood and paper and plastic, for everyone has seen the videos of just how horrible these new homes are, from mold to recurring plumbing issues to fractured foundations, termites, to builders cutting costs to save a penny or two, which all must be fixed at astonishingly quotes. Unknowing homebuyers sign contracts without the knowledge that their mortgages and taxes can be hiked at any time, effectively turning homeowning into a pump-and-dump scheme. At the same time, private equity devours large swaths of single-family home neighborhoods, as well as constructing neighborhoods of their own, with all the new development issues I mentioned above, effectively turning the American homebuyer into a permanent renter, where corporations can set the price however they wish, and we will pay for it, for we have no choice. Private equity will always have more capital than a single family. 5. The entirety of our economy is built upon debt, which is hard to understand for the average person. Our government rakes in about $5.5 trillion worth of our taxes, but it spends about $7 trillion every year, adding $1.5 trillion to the national debt every single year. Private equity is in the business of constantly taking out loans to pay for more businesses, to which those bought businesses then take out loans to either buy more businesses or pay off the debt that they were purchased for. And the cycle continues like this. Private credit has skyrocketed in the last 10 years, loaning to these corporations and private investors who eat all of our properties, goods, and everything else they can. Banks are raking in debt payments from student loans, credit card debt, car payment interest, mortgage interest, and plenty other types of interests and debts. These banks have a term they call individuals who pay their loans on time each month. deadbeats. Our financial service is running off the backs of hardworking Americans, stealing from them in the form of usury, that being interest, and haven't a care in the world how immoral that is. 6. The AI business is turning into a bubble as investors have poured hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars into this sector of tech. But not a single AI company has made profit on their AI as of yet. Investors are getting antsy, and some are either beginning to pull their money out, or at least they're beginning to cease investment as the money has not seen any returns. With this large of a cash infusion into a profitless sector of our economy, it could easily collapse the entire global system if not properly handled. 7. The car market is at its worst in years, with average and median prices reaching absurd levels. Cars new and used are unaffordable, and the payments are a true burden on anyone who lives paycheck to paycheck, which is a growing population. The worst part of this is that it's practically impossible to exist in America without a car, for our public transportation is poor and unsafe, and it's basically non-existent. Repossessions are at a recent high, for nobody can afford their car payments and the interest tacked on top of it, or their rent and mortgages, rising grocery prices, gas prices, and more, so it's no wonder people can't pay their cars off. 8. As all these prices rise, debt increases, and interest cripples consumers. The cost of living is just too much to bear. We've been turned into the product by these institutions, the only fitting analogy being that we are a cow that's milked until dry and then harvested for our meat. Despite these price hikes, our wages have been chronically stagnant, and saving is becoming a thing of the past as survival is the new norm. The middle class is shrinking at an alarming rate, as the only true middle classers being those boomers who have a cool $2.5 million in assets, investments, and savings, looking down the cliff at the rest of us, glad that they're up there, while we're down here in the muck. People have a misconception about the middle class that if you own or rent property, that you're not in the poverty line, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Nobody's really comfortable anymore, and that proves that the middle class is really much smaller than we think. How did all of this happen? Nothing is safe anymore, and everything seems to be going wrong. Pick a single sector of life, and you will find that every single one of them is in trouble. World peace, crime, cost of living, agriculture, the environment, health. Hell, even entertainment is ruined, one of the only respites we have after a taxing day of work. In times like these, it's no wonder that the social fabric is torn, as extremism takes over the youth who drown in the problems created for them. If things get worse, which it looks like it does every year, there will be a reckoning of sorts. People have nothing to live for anymore, or they at least can't find meaning sifting through the rubble that the gerontocracy have bequeathed upon us. All this to say, a recession is surely coming. I don't say this to doom and gloom, but I also don't pretend to be some finance bro who knows more than the financiers and the economists. I'm just a normal person like you who notices things. I do have a finance degree, so I may know more basic information than most, but my degree means practically nothing in this economy, so I hold little credit to that small achievement. Don't listen to others when they say the economy's great. There's always an angle. They told us there wasn't a recession during COVID, but that wasn't true at all. There were 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, and once that happened, they changed the definition of a recession so that it no longer reflected the new truth. The Federal Reserve will always lie, where if they say the dreaded R word, they know full well that the people will panic, spending up will pucker up, saving will increase, and the economy will slow to a halt. When this happens, businesses and investors will hold on to their money and cease taking loans, which means the banks will then have nobody to give loans to and everything stops. Believe your own eyes. When everything around you seems to fall apart, seems to outprice you, understand what that is. Every single indicator of a recession is present in our economy today. Use your common sense and expect a recession to come, for it already feels like we've been living in one since 2020, almost like a shadow recession. Presidents, bankers, politicians, and the Fed will tell you what you want to hear, so there's no widespread panic. And they will always do this. It doesn't take an economist to know that we're up shit's creek right now. I say all of this not to be negative, but for you to prepare. Also understand this. I can always be wrong, and a recession may not be looming over us. But it's always a good idea to brace yourself for a potential crash, and to have certain prophylactics in place if it does occur. So what can I do, you're probably asking? There's a few things that can hedge against recession and inflation. First, you must create a budget. Everyone should do this regardless, where you must know where your hard-earned money is going, for they seem to be taking all of it anyways. You will quickly find out if you're overspending on things like subscriptions, eating out, or activities. It's painful to cut out creature comforts, but going homeless and hungry is even more painful. Second, you need to downsize your lifestyle. It's far easier to do this when you've made a budget, and you can see just how much you spend on certain things in your life. This one's probably the most unpopular, but it's also the most necessary. If you struggle to make rent or your mortgage but you live alone, consider taking a roommate. If you live with a family but have no kids, consider not living beyond your means and taking a modest apartment or duplex for the time being if you haven't already. If you have trouble making car payments for your luxury car, trade it in for a cheaper, more robust car that still gets you from point A to point B. Don't go broke for luxury and flashiness that you don't need. Eat out less, look for ways to use coupons and discounts when available. Frugality is almost necessary to survive in this economy, and it's a good virtue to practice, and it will make your life just a little bit more comfortable. Third, build an emergency fund. This suggestion is probably the hardest to do, as a growing number of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and most Americans can't even save up $400 for an emergency fund. But it's not impossible, especially after doing steps 1 and 2. Place your emergency fund into a high-yield savings account at around 4% interest, for they make about 400 times the interest that typical savings accounts do at 0.01%. Fourth, diversify investments. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. Have investments in precious metals, long-term investments like ETFs or index funds, short-term investments like stocks, dividend stocks, inflation hedging investments, etc. Diversification should happen anyways to hedge against any sort of economic hiccup in any sector. If you have no investments yet, you really should start investing into your future. Don't panic sell when things drop, for your investments in things like stocks can bounce back to pre-recession prices in just a few years. And panic selling long-term investments is always a horrible idea, given their resilience. As a side strategy, if you have money left over during a recession, you could purchase stocks and other investments during the low period and sell high when the economy bounces back. That's easier said than done, though, and it's not a foolproof plan. Fifth, hold on to your job. Don't quit in this economy, for you may not get a job back in a long time, especially if the economy hits the fan, which it technically is right now. Maintain what you have and be wary of taking new jobs if the company's notorious for layoffs. I'm not saying you shouldn't take a new job, but just be careful with what you take. If you don't have a job right now, keep trying. I know how lame that sounds, and I know how difficult it is, for I've lived through it before, trust me. But don't give up, despite the humiliation you must bear. Taking on a second job is also a strategy, but that's up to the individual if they truly need to take on that extra stress. Sixth, research what you can to do to hedge against inflation and recession. Don't just take my word for it, for I'm no expert. Research finances your own so that you're better prepared and better understand the system that screws you left, right, and sideways. I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm no fortune teller. I'm no economist, financier, or chair of the Fed. But I fully expect the economy to crash in the US, which would likely crash the global economy, for we're not the only nation to be facing serious trouble. I'm just a simple guy who notices patterns that everyone else should notice, where the things I've mentioned are quite obvious things we encounter every single day. All I ask is that you don't let a recession hit you with your pants down. Be prepared always. Even if you don't take any of my suggestions, that's okay. I just hope you see the signs at least, so that it doesn't surprise you when the recession comes. Good luck, and please prepare.